Welcome to today's live and interactive event, Cybersecurity, a future-proof career. My name is Stephanie and I'm speaking to you from San Francisco, California. And today I have a very special guest with me today. We have Swati Handa, Cisco's Global Cybersecurity Strategy Manager, who is based in San Jose, California. And throughout this conversation, we're just going to be sharing information about the Networking Academy cybersecurity courses that Cisco has to offer, recommending next steps for people interested in joining the industry, and discussing key trends in the cybersecurity field. So if you're at all interested in cyber or anything in the cybersecurity field, make sure to listen. We have a lot of good tips for you guys. And be sure to drop questions for Swati in the comments. We're going to try to answer as many questions as we can as possible at the end of our chat. And while you're at it, when you're asking your questions, please let us know where you're coming in from. Would love to know where from the world you are tuning in. All right, so let's get started. Welcome, Swati. My first question is for you. Can you please tell me how you got into the cybersecurity field?
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for having me. And folks, I must tell you, we might get lucky and a wonderful person might join us. We'll keep our fingers crossed. It's not just me that you'll hear talk. And we hope in the next few minutes I can answer some of the questions that Stephanie you have for me, as well as anything that you want to ask me or us in the field getting into the world of cyber. So to your question, Stephanie, how did I get into that field, right? So before I joined Cisco, during my career, I worked as a security architect. I did a lot of jobs, from triaging zero-day threats in the network to analytics in the cloud to security controls. It has been a wonderful experience. Whereas it all started as a kid. That's how I would think, when I was a kid, I had a knack for treasure hunts. So the Easter egg hunt, or be it through clues, you jumped around in streets, or if it was something on the computers. So during my years in college, I got introduced to a capture the flag event. I feel that was my aha moment, right? That set the foundation for cybersecurity. I always enjoyed puzzles, but when I got to work in a simulated environment where you got to kind of see adversaries in creative light, that constant battle between good and evil, that flavor of cybersecurity got me hooked. So when I started my career, I started in IT, and one of my mentors offered me a role in the cyber domain as an analyst. And I feel from there was no turning back. I did a lot of self-study, I did certifications. Any chance that I got to learn something new, I was on it, right? Because that's the beauty of this field. There's always something new happening. There's always somebody who's smarter than you in the room or in the virtual room, the world we live in today. So it's interesting to keep yourself one step ahead in terms of the technology as well as the thinking. So did that help you, Stephanie, what I was trying to just my journey around the world of cyber?
Well, it's interesting because I think I took away kind of like a couple things from your story, right? One is the many lenses that we can take, we can look through to look at cybersecurity. You were saying something about good versus evil and the kind of stories that we look at when we look into cybersecurity. And number two, I think, is just the ever-changing nature of the field, right?
Exactly.
It's that folks are always thinking of new things, and in that case, someone like you, Swati, has to be smarter next time, more agile next time, right?
Right. It's like when you're in the field, you have to be smarter, or you got to make sure that you work with a bunch of people who are smarter than you. So that's the joy of my job, right? You be good and make sure you work in a team who's as good as, or better than you. That's definitely helpful.
Well, so it's interesting that last year we were able to do this Facebook Live during Cybersecurity Month in person. And of course, this year we are chatting virtually. So I want to chat about this year. How has the pandemic, how's COVID changed the cybersecurity field?
You're absolutely right. We were in the same room. Now we're in the same virtual room that we talk about. Things are vastly different. Like if I want to say that things have changed a little, it would be an understatement. I feel our lives may have slowed down, right? Just in the way the amount of time we may spend to commuting to work or going from our places to either work or school or just getting out of the house more. So the life seems to have slowed down, but not this domain. This domain has actually intensified, right? So think about it. Anything we want to do today, right? Our ability to work, to shop online, watch a show, talk to our friends, bank, anything. So connecting to a network is a necessary evil. And we have to be connected to be, just to each other. And the moment you connect, you want to be secure. So it's not just, you don't think of cybersecurity as a silo domain. Think of it, the moment you get online, you have to be secure. So again, when I think of cybersecurity being part of our day-to-day lives and the world we live in with COVID, more connected, need to have more cybersecurity. Another parallel that I like to draw is, are you familiar with the dark web, Stephanie? You know how we have things that go above the surface, the world we live in that I just talked about. You know, the Netflix, the Disney, the subscription channels, the YouTubes we watch. And then there's the dark web, which is below. So it's like the iceberg. What we see, the lives we live in, is the tip of the iceberg. And what's below the surface is the dark web. So, and 91% of businesses reported an increase in cyber attacks above the surface, the world we live in, right? So think about that. That's just 4% of the internet pages. So that's 4% that's visible, has an increase in cyber attacks. In fact, it's predicted to hit in the next 2 years 6 trillion, not million, not billion, but 6 trillion in damages just with the cybersecurity attacks. And the sad part is that we have today more than 4 million unfilled cybersecurity job positions today. So we have less people, a big problem to solve. So that's again over the surface. And with the COVID situation, and another aspect that I want to talk now below the tip of the iceberg, right? The dark web that exists below. Another observation that we are seeing as we look at the dark web is there's a huge frenzy of phishing kits, right? So think about it. Anybody who has been impacted or is worried about with the COVID situation, there are a lot of malicious actors out there who are flooding the marketplace with phishing kits and fraud kits with the false promise of, well, I'll give you the up-to-date information, or this is how you can, get the information on the web, or even free money. But there's no free lunch. Everything, there's a catch to it. So that's what's happening. So it's interesting to see how the COVID situation has impacted our lives above the surface of the iceberg and below the surface, with the major trend of phishing kits and malicious actors becoming, they're like, okay, if I can't do it, I'm going to give it to you for free. And then you be my minion army to go attack, right? So just keep this in mind as we look at the COVID situation, that, things are getting above as well as below the tip of the iceberg with the dark web.
Well, that's interesting. You're talking about, scavenger hunts earlier and how you kind of got into that. It's like so much of the web is parts that we don't really see. And you have that nice work where you get to look into that and discover all of these interesting things. It's so fascinating. And I have read a lot of research, I think coming out of Cisco as well, about when the pandemic first started, just how many malicious actors were out there trying to, unfortunately, prey on vulnerable folks who are worried about the situation. So it is pretty unfortunate. So Swati, we were talking about the trends that we saw this year, but what are the trends in cybersecurity that you see in the future?
So I'm going to use the same analogy that I did before, right? Over the surface and below the surface. Let me start with below the surface again. We keep hearing of Bitcoin or this cryptocurrency all the time, right? We're like, oh, it has gone so high. We see all of this happening. And one of the things that the pandemic has done is now people more than ever, so you had your plastic currency, right? You have your cards, and then there's the physical currency, which is your cash. And now there's the third angle, the cryptocurrency, right? That's the virtual currency. And more with the pandemic, people don't want to physically handle the cash component, or they're even hesitant to insert their credit card in the slot. So there's that hesitation. So now the cryptocurrency is really taking off. That has accelerated, right? With all, and another part to it, that it is, it's one of the major forms of conducting transactions on the dark web. So the anti-cash sentiment is what we're seeing being spread a lot. And then the malware programs, up till now, we see a lot of phishing kits. You see a lot of crypto tools with malicious intent being freely available as well. So again, below the surface, I see a lot of cryptocurrency taking off, a lot of crypto tools being made available with the current trends that will take off in the future, right? The future trends that we talk about. And above the surface, the other thing, with us spending more and more time at home, right? We're spending more time on our computers, is the take of IoT devices. So the watches that we wear, the devices that we talk about, right? By 2023, we expect globally 5.7 billion mobile subscribers. There'll be more home applications, 30% more car applications. And every time there are more devices, that's the bigger threat surface that we're talking about. Correct, Steph? So it's just a matter of just the surface increasing, above the surface an explosion of IoT devices. So not just, when you talk about cybersecurity, again, it's not just the computer you connect, but anything that's connected to the network. And below the surface is the cryptocurrency taking off. I mean, those are the two top things that come to my mind when you ask this question of what would change in the future trends.
Yep. I love this. I feel like I'm getting a one-on-one class with Swati. This is really cool, just like learning about cybersecurity. And I think folks, we're interested. 2023 is coming up pretty soon, but do you have anything to say in terms of what cybersecurity will look like even in 5 to 10 years? I know that's a long way out and things are going to change super rapidly, but what would you say in terms of 5 to 10 years out?
So it's interesting, even though you say it's 5 to 10 years out, but we're actually all solving the same problem that we've been solving 5 years before, now, and later. And if I had to sum it up, the statement would be, make everything secure, decrease the cost, so lower the cost, and get rid of the threat actors. And what's happening is the costs are increasing, the threat actors are increasing because now technology is cheaper. And then that's what makes the technology of making everything secure very challenging, right? So it's the same. This is the simplest problem that we want to solve. We solved yesterday, we want to solve today, and we'll continue to solve. So you have all kinds of buzzwords, but that's the main problem statement. But what's interesting is, especially in the next, when you talk about 5 to 10 years, I feel with the quantum computing becoming more and more mainstream in our lives, we'll be able to handle large population and large amounts of data systems. So again, zettabytes and petabytes are no longer something that you read in research papers, but something that we see, a lot of institutes already using and it becoming more common space. I mean, the laptops and the phones devices, the latest one you get, if you get something below 128, you actually wonder. And there was a time where getting a pen drive of 64 GB was, it has all my data. So, just the volume of data being available to us, and more than just the data, having the capability to make real-time decisions is very critical, right? And that's what we will see. And another thing that I feel is, so one is making real-time decisions with this data. And the second is how seriously we take security. Today when we step out for a cup of coffee, we make sure that we have locked our door. We check for that physical check before we step out. Or if you're driving around in a bike, we make sure, did we lock our bike before we step out of it? So there's this physical security which is kind of built in before us. But I wonder how many times do we check, did we lock our phones? Did we change our password? Did we, that hygiene, that security angle of it, the cybersecurity of it, it's not an involuntary action yet. So in the next 10 years, I feel that would be a reflex action that we would start seeing with more and more people. Check the door. Is it closed before I step out? Did I lock the car? Same thing. Did I switch off the computer? Or do I want somebody else to send an email out? So just something to keep in mind, right? Over the 10 years, quantum computing increasing, cybersecurity becoming more an involuntary action in what we are doing. And then overall, just the trend of us. In fact, you know what? In the 10 years, I always tend to think of, in terms of, when we think of threat actors that come into picture, right? And how today, the world we live in, we tend to think of how do we defend our network? What do we do from the attacks? So once in a while, I'll go, to the basketball court and throw some hoops with my friends. And whenever I've played basketball, I tend to draw parallels between the game and the world of cybersecurity. So, as you know, in basketball, you have different strategies. You either play, attack, you play defensive, you play man-on-man, you play zones. So think of it, when you talk of man-on-man, that strategy, where you here are 5 players from the different team, here are 5 players from my team, and each of us will cover, one-on-one of these. With the volume of threat actors in millions and billions, that's just not possible for us, right? So that strategy goes out. Next, you think of playing in zones, where you go all right, I'll cover near the basket, or I'll cover center court, or I'll make sure that the other person doesn't throw hoops over there, near their ball, just defend that. So the world we live in today, we may have the luxury of we want somebody to who knows how to configure the firewall, or who knows somebody who knows to monitor the network and make sure everything's right. And third, if there is an attack, what would you do? So we're playing zones in the world of cybersecurity. But going forward, we won't have that luxury. We would need somebody who understands all of this and knows what would happen, right? So again, quantum computing will help you, but having that knowledge definitely helps you get there. So, and finally, the most important thing, which will make sure, how you have a referee in the game, making sure everybody follows the rules. We have today, and there'll be an explosion of, think of not just one referee, but thousands of referees in terms of regulators. So those regulators need to make sure we are doing a job right, and we can show it to people that we have been able to demonstrate in keeping their data secure. Why would they come to Cisco or any other organization unless we're able to provide that information? So again, basketball analogy here, but just how the games that we play in actually apply to the world of cybersecurity as well.
Yeah, what I was not expecting today was such a beautiful basketball analogy to cybersecurity that worked just so seamlessly. I'm surprised, Swati. You always surprising me with those amazing analogies. So, now that folks and Netiquette folks are, excited for what's coming up in the next 5 to 10 years, or even the next 3 years, what would you recommend are the hard and soft skills that are critical to have in a career for cybersecurity? What are the
cybersecurity professional, the world is your oyster. You're going to possess highly transferable skills that companies, not just one, but companies everywhere. So we just talked about that 91% of the companies have seen a spike in cybersecurity attacks post-COVID, right? So they're always on the lookout for the right talent. And the average pay that you're talking about individuals who work in this field, just US itself is over 100K. That's average, that's not top dollar. So that's 100K, that's $100,000 that you are expecting on an average pay for individuals who start off their careers. right? That's the average we're looking for. So, and in terms of skills to enter this, I would like to divide it into two parts. You have your technical skills, and then you have your soft skills. And even in the technical skills, you could further divide it into the conceptual technical knowledge, like number of protocols, what is subnet, what's the OSI models, that's the conceptual part. And then there's the hands-on skill with technical hands-on skills. Can you configure a network? Do you know about penetration testing? Do you know to install a firewall? Those are the technical skills that come into mind. And then moving on to the soft skills. So whenever we hire somebody in this field of technical skills, we always look for people who are able to simplify the concepts, right? And are not afraid to ask questions. So ask why, also ask why not. Those are two very important questions to understand. And figure out, and as I said before, learn to work in a team. At the end of the day, cybersecurity is about making technology safer for everybody.
Yep, absolutely. And how does Networking Academy, something like Cisco's NetAcad, prepare folks for a career in cybersecurity?
A lot. There's things you could do as a beginner. There's folks you could do to get a job. So if you're just getting your feet wet, and over at NetAcad for more than over 20 years, we've been able to prepare more than 11 million students, right? In fact, last year, more than 2 million students participated in our program. And when I talk about these beginning courses and the hands-on components that we talked about, so you have your packet tracer, and you have which is a network simulator. So you don't really you get to work from your laptop and figure out how would things make a difference as you configure them. We have digital badges in them. So as you learn the skills, you get to show off to the employers. We have a matching engine. So once you're ready and you're ready to apply for these jobs, you get access to this whole slew of job opportunities that are ready for you. And we have the alumni network where you can get to interact with smart folks like you, and get in and say, yep, we've been talking, is there a job opportunity there? So I would say if you talk about looking at the courses, we have Intro to Cyber. That's your first step. You take Cybersecurity Essentials. And after these two courses, the three courses open up. Do you want to be an ethical hacker? You have IoT security. Do you want to be somebody who work in the SOC space? You have cyber ops. Do you want to configure and you want to become a network security expert? Then, you have our CCNA security course. So you have all these courses that are readily available, but you got to take the first step, get enrolled in these courses and then take it from there.
Wonderful. Swati, I do see some questions from folks, which is really exciting. Okay, let's take a look. An easy one from Morlo. How long does it take to train and certify for the cybersecurity program?
So it depends on what track you want to take in. Let me start with CyberOps, right? First, as I just talked about the CyberOps course. CyberOps course is expected to take around 70 hours for individual, right? And the more you put in, the more you get out of it. That goes with anything in life. So you want to put more of individuals studying more practice, more simulation, the SOC space. We have all the tools and the virtual machines where you can learn these hands-on skills. But as you take on the course, you would be qualified to take on the certification, which gets you and makes you a SOC analyst. So to answer the question, one of the beauties of CyberOps is, in fact, cybersecurity. It's an ever-evolving journey. So there's no, here I put 2 hours into it and I'll become a cybersecurity expert. But your first step, I would say start with Intro to Cyber, which is just a 15-hour course, and then see how it goes.
Great. One from Athrun, Cisco Cybersecurity or Cisco Network Security. Which one would you recommend that I choose?
All right. You know what? I will just tell you what they get to, and you get to decide what you want to do next. Okay, so it's your choice. It's not my choice. Both of you would get you very exciting careers, no doubt about it. It's like So if you like to protect and defend the network, right? You want to configure a firewall, you want to understand with the network, how do you make sure it's secure? If you want to build locks, take CCNA security. For cyber ops, if you want to be the one who builds the system, the intelligence system around the fence. So you have the locks, you have a fence, but you want to build that alarm or monitoring system so that if an intruder gets into the house, you would immediately know, then go into cyber ops. Because cyber ops is more about monitoring and detecting threats. So it's your choice, Afrin, whether you want to be the one who builds the locks or you want to be the one who wants to make sure there's no intruder coming into the network. Your pick. Both are very exciting careers. They're not going anywhere. In fact, as I said, with the 4 million jobs there's a lot of opportunity in either of those domains.
Wonderful. This one's from Gurpreet. Hello, Swati. I have 10 years of experience in operations and looking for a transition into cybersecurity domain. How do I start?
Okay. Gurpreet, thank you for joining in. So there are a lot of individuals who pivot to the world of cybersecurity. And don't feel that, whatever experience that you have, 10 years of experience is a waste. Everything adds on. As I said, whatever domain you have worked in, it's all buildable by the field of security. The first thing I would say is, again, take our cybersecurity essentials course. I feel you would have a flavor of intro to cyber. Start with cybersecurity essentials. It's a self-paced course. You'll get to see if that's a domain that resonates with you. And after that, as you get more comfortable with it, the next step for you would be to just take on any of those courses that I talk about. The network defender, you being SOC analyst, or an ethical hacker with IoT security. Whatever you do, guys, keep one thing in mind, right? Whatever course you start with, it's not always the reclusive nerd that we are portrayed out there, right? That's not always the picture of cybersecurity. In fact, think of it as when you go to a hospital, there's not just brain surgeon. Everybody might want to become the brain surgeon, might or might not. Like, I don't want to take the stress. But there are a lot of other people. You have your first responders, you have your nurse, you have your physicians. Similarly, in the field of cybersecurity, you have people in different domains. And as you step in, you get to choose what's got your most interest, right? Instead of somebody saying, no, you got to go do this. Choose what resonates with you. Because if you don't have the interest, my talking will not add anything to it.
I don't know. I'm super inspired by you, Swati. It's just so interesting when it comes from you. Okay, a quick last question for you before we wrap up. Do you have any final recommendations, maybe classes or things that folks can do if they're in Networking Academy to get started or learn more about cybersecurity? Any last recommendations for folks?
Absolutely. So one of the things a question that I constantly hear for folks on my LinkedIn or anywhere I meet them in various conferences is how to make up for the lack of experience in the field. Because traditionally people tend to say, hey, do you have any experience in the field? And one of the ways that I overcome that, and I feel I was very successful in, I would recommend to others, is that volunteer your time. With whatever you're doing, initially you might not get a paid job. So volunteer time at conferences or events, or if you're in a school, if they have a project going on, go volunteer there. Join LinkedIn interest group, professional networks, security organizations. There are people, like, if you're willing to ask questions and spend time, there's a lot of opportunities out there. And believe it or not, this is something you can put on your resume, saying that, yes, I volunteered at GitHub or I volunteered at a project there. And that would pad up your resume and will compensate for any lack of experience, right? So just to step in the right direction is what I would recommend.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Swati, for your expertise. And thank you guys for joining into our Facebook Live. For more information, please check out netacad.com/courses/cybersecurity. And we will see you next time. Have a great day.